let's take a look at the Apple II.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and for both machines, you use the same CPU, right? The 6502.
It's odd enough. This computer has 3 rows of memory, and if you take those out, it's actually got fewer chips than an Apple I.
Okay.
And it does 10 times as much. It does unheard of color. Nobody thought color would ever be built into a low-cost product at all. Color generators might cost $1,000, at least hundreds of dollars by the cheapest methods known, with hundreds of parts mixing all these analog signals and varying phases to change colors. I thought of a way to do it with zeros and ones, and just what the pattern you load in turns into a color, and it worked. It was a lucky concept. The graphics, you can just type something into memory, like I said, and pop up a color screen on your television, or a letter A or a letter B. All of a sudden, the microprocessor, just what it stores in memory is what you see. So that was a beautiful concept. There was, I had worked on video games at Atari, so I actually built in one chip in here and a little connector that actually gave you paddles. You ran a little wire outside and we delivered it with paddles, controls you could turn to play games. Gaming and color went together, and graphics, and they were very important to me, that a computer was going to be the heart of the modern arcade games. So it was really a start of computer graphics. It all kind of started with the Apple I for the modern computer graphics, not spaceware like we heard about on the PDP-1. That was way earlier, but very impressive.
You know, listening to you, I'm hearing that you're really into efficiency. That's really important to you, and it seems in a way we've gotten back to what you had described, what the industry was like before you invented the Apple. That now we have these enormous teams of people working on the hardware and the software. And looking at today, do you see any opportunities to get back to that simpler, more efficient?
Well, simpler, more efficient steps internally. What happened is, because of Moore's law, chips advancing to having a billion times as many parts on a chip as they did back then for the same price. Today's efficiency is still based around making the price lower. Mm-hmm. My efficiency was to have fewer parts and to make the price lower. In the end, price lower was the most important thing. So I had to work on very clever ways to have fewer parts. Nowadays, you don't have to be so clever. Basically, the parts are all so inexpensive. I mean, it used to be a phone cost a certain amount of money in the early days of cell phones, and a camera cost about the same amount of money. But now, in fact, a camera becomes, a couple of bucks to just put it in the phone. So every phone will have a camera. It became that inexpensive for things. And so today, you never get to go inside and see, is there art? The people that were sitting in chairs out front this morning, we were all very much artists who were known for thinking out little details of how to make something possible in the very minimum amount of RAM we had, or how to turn software into a set of rules and tests called the art of programming. Al Alcorn to design Pong when nobody thought you'd ever have an affordable video game based on a TV in arcades. That was incredible challenges. It was really an art. And nowadays it's less of an art, but it's more like, you can buy the engineering. Once you design what your product's going to be, heck, you can have a lot of engineers anywhere in the world designing it. So the engineers aren't given as much prominence as they were in the days when I did the Apple computers.
Is it also the case that, given that we have so much more horsepower today than we did before, we can allow for a little more waste in software development than maybe we could back in the good old days?
Yeah, the hardware doesn't matter, although there's been a big revolution in sensory devices, things like accelerometers that can feel shaking and movement. It's kind of like gyroscopes. There's been, things like we got the proximity sensors, we've got better screens with more pixels, we've got touch sensitivity, we got cameras that can watch where your hands go and play with you. So input-output has changed quite a bit. But the hardware all the rest of the computer hardware basically has come down to such a low cost. The difference in all computers is really in the software. Okay. How well, and the trouble is one person can implement the software, get something great done, and another person can come along and, make it seem like twice as fast or 5 times as fast just by taking that extra time. And that's more the art. There's still room for art, even though the programmers are usually taking a bunch of pre-written large programs and just using them to do the job in the end, rather than writing everything from the little atoms, the tiniest little computer statement on up, which is what I did when I was, that was always my approach, whether it was hardware or software. Take the tiniest little working ingredients, put them together in the right ways. And I had to use my brain, as an engineer does, to design something and not to just copy what's the standard way that's done. So today is, it's hard to say, you go to school, you're kind of taught everything, and how much of it is unique. It varies from company to company. But most of the big companies and the new products that change our lives are really new inventions. A lot of new thinking went into them. And they were risky, and it was difficult to say whether they would work or not, just like the Apple II.
I think I'm down to my last question, which is a little off topic, but okay, so you're a pioneer in the computer industry. You're a co-founder of Apple. You've had a street named after you. You've been awarded a medal from the president, and you've done the worm on Dancing with the Stars. And so I'm wondering, is there anything else in your life left to accomplish?
Every single day, I want to have somebody say thank you, that I helped them in some way, whether it was to tie their shoelace when they needed it, or tell them what kind of software will solve their problem. With the internet and email, it's easy, but I want to be kind of a helpful, like a teacher always wants to be. And that's more important than all those other things. That's more important than starting Apple, is just being helping people that need help.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for...
By the way, and one thing that's left out of this entire Revolution exhibit, it wasn't even said today, is, this thing exists because of a donation from Bill Gates. And he sat there and listened to some ideas and said yes on it, and didn't really constrict it heavily. And that's really amazing. These things don't happen unless you have people that believe there's a reason for it. So he deserves a lot of credit.
Well, thank you to Bill Gates, and thank you, Woz. It's been a pleasure and a thrill to meet you.
Thank you for chatting with me.